Oi, gente, começando aqui a live, mostrando que tem uma galera do Brasil, da América Latina aqui assistindo. Dá oi aí, gente. Todo mundo tá olhando, veio ver prestigiar o nosso projeto. Dá oi aqui. Então, vai começar em exatos 2 minutos. Acho que é isso. Dá um oizinho aí.
Na torcida vai dar.
Estamos nervosos, mas vai dar tudo certo. E vamos lá, vou virar agora a câmera aqui.
Olha como Angela lindo bebendo água. Eu acho que isso a gente tá por baixo.
Que coisa horrível, tô nervosa, pra não esconder o controle.
Thank you.
All right, we are ready to start. Please help me welcome Team UFRGS Brazil.
Pesticides were found in farmers' urine. Pesticides were found in baby diapers, food, beer and wine. These human-made chemicals are spreading widely through nature, where they should never have been.
And the pesticide we're talking about is glyphosate, the most used agrochemical worldwide.
Glyphosate is a broad-spectrum organophosphate that inhibits amino acid synthesis in many organisms, mainly plants. In agriculture, it is used to control weed growth, mainly on transgenic-resistant crops. As such, it is of vital importance in countries that depend on agribusiness, like Brazil.
Brazil is a huge continental country, occupying almost half of South America's territory. It also is responsible for 7.3% of all global agricultural exportations, and more than 20% of its GDP relies on agribusiness.
Agribusiness has such an importance that it moves many branches in Brazil's economy, ranging from grain transportation to research grants. Even though, for instance, Brazil is the second largest producer of soy in the world, having produced more than 123 tons in the last harvest. 95% of all the soy is modified to be resistant to glyphosate, turning Brazil in one of the biggest consumers of this pesticide. Although agrochemical usage is a polemic subject worldwide, it is vital for the economy. However, a big wave of compound liberation is on the rise, increasing the concerns about environmental and health-related issues. Some chemicals prohibited in many European countries, such as glyphosate itself and many others, are still legalized in Brazil, with more than 350 new formulations reaching the market this year. If that's not enough to raise awareness, Brazil also has 12% of all potable water and the biggest watershed in the planet.
Water, which is the final destination for glyphosate carried by rain. Through rivers and lakes, it reaches no intended places, and there it causes mutation in fishes, malformation in amphibious species, and superreproduction of snail species, which are known as a vector for some diseases as schistosomiasis. Regarding human health, there's still much controversy about its safety, but there's no doubt we have to take it out from nature.
With the iGEM competition, we saw the right opportunity to tackle this problem with synthetic biology. Bioremediation are already used microorganisms are likely used for bioremediation due to their capability of degrading almost any compound. The selection of these microorganisms are made from contaminated environment and grow in laboratory, producing formulations with one or few species. However, it can take a long time and imbalance the local fauna. So, a better approach would be a closed filtering system with a carefully engineered organism to do what we want it to degrade what we want it to degrade, with one or more kill switches to prevent it from leaking to the nature.
And this is glyphosate, designed to be a floating filter containing genetically engineered bacteria that use glyphosate as a phosphate source. Or at least it was, at the first. Since just after we began our human practices, glyphosate has substantially changed. And then we realized human practices would be an essential part throughout our whole project. You know, the process of detachment of an idea isn't always simple. But we, as a team, acknowledged the need for change. Glyphosate changed, we changed, and both changed for better. And it all started when we began contact with three main groups: farmers, agribusiness company CEOs, and experts such as in toxicology and environmental sanitation. This way, we managed to collect enough data to sustain the relevance of glyphosate.
But before all that, how are we measuring glyphosate?
Glyphosate is a really hard analyte to measure, so to make it easier, we try to use voltammetry. Voltammetry is based on changes of potential in the electrolytic cells. With this, we chose different electrodes in different cell assemblies to try to measure it. Our electrodes provided a surface where copper ions could oxidize, and the glyphosate interaction would interfere in the current changes of this oxidization. We could measure this signal of the glyphosate, but it wasn't analytical. Still, we can improve this method for a better glyphosate quantification.
Since our proposed approach didn't work, we made a partnership with LFDA to quantify glyphosate by the golden standard method, the LC-MSMS. We were able to test the method with our equipment conditions and evidence the method's sensibility. Also, we showed that glyphosate did not degrade upon prolonged exposure to heat conditions. And apart from human errors, the sample recovery was very similar to that presented in the beginning. Well, so now we know we can measure glyphosate analytically, but how does this degradation going to happen?
As we know, all living beings need phosphate to survive. In bacteria, there is a regulome responsible for PI management, the full regulome. In PI depletion conditions, this regulome controls a set of different genes and operones responsible to produce proteins involved in organophosphonate capitation, storage, and saving. One of those operones is the PHN operon. It contains 14 cistrons that altogether are able to capitate and break molecules such as glyphosate and its main byproduct AMPA. The final products of this pathway are sarcosine and PI, both used in bacteria's own metabolism.
And guess what? We can easily find this operon in lots of E. coli strains, as our chosen chassis, E. coli K12 and G1655.
So the glyphosate breakdown by our E. coli begins with the PHN CDE, which is responsible to produce an ABC transporter for organophosphonate capitation. However, our little mate isn't perfect, and it contains a mutation a frame shift mutation at PHNE, which impairs organophosphonate uptake. To make life a little bit harder, it also contains a repressor, the PHNF, which is responsible for lowering the PHN CDE protein levels when phosphate is available.
Next, we have the formation of a complex that will allow the CP bond cleavage by a CP ligase encoded by PHNJ. After that, some auxiliary enzymes are produced, from which PHNO has a special importance because of its capability of adding an alkyl group to AMPA, allowing its degradation. So, to show that our wild-type E. coli cannot degrade glyphosate, we performed two growth curves assays with two minimal salt media, the M9 and the tris glucose. And as you can see in this figure, our bacteria were not able to grow in phosphate conditions. with glyphosate supplemented conditions as a sole phosphonate source.
So unfortunately, it looks like our mate doesn't like glyphosate.
To correct that, we thought that we should enhance the PAGN expression levels and also free it from the full regulation. So we decided to change its endogenous promoter for constitutive one.
For this, we chose the PCAT, PLAC, and PJ23-100 from iGEM parts registry. In order to efficiently use IDT credits, we synthesized each of those promoters plus a chlorophenical resistance cassette separately. Then, we designed chimeric primers to add homologous flanking sequences to each of those parts. Once confirmed, we fused them together with the primary single-joint PCR. This step generated 3 new composites parts, as listed in the slide. But as we needed to insert this part in the genome, not as a plasmid, we transformed all made with an arachidose-induced lambda-red system, which requires a 50 base homology at the ends in order to recombine. With this method, we achieved some mutants, but had some troubles in confirming the locus of insertion. After that, we had another challenge to face. As said, we still had the PHNE mutation and the PHF repressor. So we designed a biobrick for the PHNE correction and PHF removal in a single transformation step. But to synthesize this cassette, we had to column optimize the sequence, and in doing so, we changed the homologies too. To correct that, we designed 70 nucleotide chimeric primers to add the 50 base pair homologies at the end of this biobrick. Due to the primer size and complexity, we faced several challenges with this amplification. We tried many different approaches without success. To overcome it, we added each homology in a different reaction, then mixed them both in 1:1 molar ratio and heated it to 95 degrees Celsius so to separate strands. Then we let them reanneal at room temperature and transformed our promoter mutants with the product of this reaction. However, as you probably noticed, there was no resistance gene for the selection of this cassette, for it was not possible. We needed a precise insertion in the middle of a big operon, so no space whatsoever.
Even in chlorophenical supplemented plates, we have a mattress full of colonies, but we had already anticipated that. So we strip-plated these colonies in TG media supplemented with glyphosate, and single colonies emerged. We made more than 100 confirmation PCRs, but no positive ones. But our hopes for our little mate weren't over yet. So, relying on literature reports and its high probability of mutation, we decided to induce the mutation of this PAGN operon. To do so, we performed growth curves with TG media, with some selected mutants, promoter mutants, with media supplemented with glyphosate. And as you can see in the results, our E. coli could not grow in glyphosate supplemented conditions, but with addition of phosphate, some mutants grew up to 2.5 times more than our wild-type E. coli, and we think this might be due to the promoter changes we've made.
But during this, we were also concerned with our system's biosafety, since Brazil has strict regulations regarding it. So in order to guarantee that our bacteria would not be harmful to the environment if it were to go out of the filter, we had to use kill switches biobricks, right? So we found a MAZF kill switch on the iGEM parts registry, but it lacked a ribosome binding sequence and had a defective C1 CDS. In order to solve this problem, we designed a new biobrick, which was improved by removing the glucose dependency and loosening the tight lac regulation. By using a modeling approach, we were able to compare these two new biobricks.
The removal of the operator region showed us that our MAZF expressions were lower when compared with the previous part when IPTG was added. As such, less IPTG was necessary to repress MAZF expression. But in natural environment, glucose levels are low, so it makes it a little bit irrelevant for our project. So also, MAZF expression needs to reach a threshold to effectively killing the cell. So we decided to prevent our bacteria to leak to environment. We decided to create our own arabinose-dependent kill switch, using the TSE2 protein toxin that will arrest the cell cycle even in low quantities.
Again, by using a modeling approach, to verify the efficiency of the system. And our results showed us that the system depended on glucose concentrations. When subjected to low concentrations of this sugar, the Ravenous effect became much more pronounced.
But we still didn't know if the concentrations of TSC2 with different arabinose levels would be enough to arrest bacterial growth. In order to assess that, we chose an already existent biobrick that contained the arabinose-induced system and measured it through MRFP. The results showed that this biobrick can be controlled by arabinose. Then, to assess the efficiency of our TSC2 construction, we changed its CBS for the MRFP. To validate our model, again we measured fluorescence, but in this case, the result was the opposite from our prediction. In order to exclude that this could be due to the MRFP, we performed growth curve assays with our TSC2 construction in the highest arabinose concentrations predicted by our model. The result was not predicted again. Based on literature reviews, we then hypothesized that this could be due to the C1 unspecific recognition of the C1 control promoter, or due to his capability of forming dimers when in high concentrations.
So, to maintain a bacteria in a medium containing arabinose and to add one more layer of safety, we decided to imprison it in fibers made through coaxial electrospinning method. Although electrospinning isn't a cheap and simple technique, and it would require a high-skilled person to handle the equipment. Then we talked to a polymer specialist, and he gave us the suggestion of using alginate. Alginate is cheap, easy, has hydrogel properties, and we could perform it whenever we want to. So we took it into account and decided to use alginate as a support media. We did some tests to test its permeability to another substances, and using the test of Conosi blue absorption with different alginate sizes, alginate concentrations, and reticulation time. As you can see in the picture, the Conosi blue was absorbed by all alginate concentrations, and it wasn't affected by the reticulation time.
So we decided to choose the smallest particle size because it's easy production and good sphere formation, and also the 1% concentration of alginate for economy, and because the results were very similar to the others. To test how long our little base would stay inside the alginate spheres, we performed an electron microscopy to measure the pore size and used formulas from literature to calculate the escape time of the bacteria from the alginate spheres. And we obtained a 3 millisecond time. And this makes no sense since a time 10,000 higher, smaller pore, and this does not make sense because a pore with 10,000 times smaller than bacteria would produce an escape time of 10 seconds.
When we started thinking about the applications of our biofilter, we focused on the impacts it would have on aquatic life. And so we designed this innovative floating filter, which would use the kinetic energy of water flow to power itself. In order to validate this idea, we talked to an environmental sanitation expert. But not all roses. We heard some hard truths, and for instance, it is an environmental crime in Brazil to put any object in less than 10 meters away from the river margin. So that would be difficult to make maintenance on the glyphosate, plus there would be no point in degrading glyphosate if the river would be continuously polluted.
So we started from the scratch and fell over a whole different literature. Now we started studying about trickling filtration, which is commonly used in sewage treatment and is the closest engineering knowledge we could base our system on. But then we realized that first we had to decide where we were about to settle our filter for after we can dimension. So, and actually that was a critical point when we were evaluating the real impact that our filter could cause on nature. Why were we thinking about applying it to rivers if we can prevent the glyphosate from even getting there? Then it became clear when we were about to settle, and it was on farmers' drainage soil system. So we designed a new model based on the 3 principles of trickling filtration. That is, distribution mechanism, filter medium, and draining system. And this is our current model. It works through a 4-propeller arm that rotates to the speed of the incoming water that is cascaded by a pipe. And the arm sprinkles water over the alginate spheres, And its flow rate is, the flow rate is calculated, so the water will be retained during 8 hours inside the filter to ensure that's going to be cleaned. The drainage system is based on the communicating vessels principle, and when the water reaches the base, it goes to another compartment through small holes. And in this compartment, the water slowly fills until it reaches a certain height. After that, the water is allowed to go to the other side of the compartment and go to nature again. The roof was designed to avoid the contact between our GMOs and the external environment, and also to ease maintenance by the user. It also contains an electronic system that measures pH and temperature and sends a text message when the range is out of the safety values for the bacteria.
But as you know, iGEM is not just about synthetic biology, it's also about people. So we went to our community, searched for their opinion in an online survey, and we collected a lot of data and understood what they think about it. And we noticed a lack of synthetic biology knowledge, especially among students. So we went to symposiums, schools, television, radio, and social media to spread the synthetic biology word and show them how it can change the world for the better. We taught, but we also learned a lot.
In this process, we were challenged with many different tasks we didn't imagine. For instance, as translating a synthetic biology child's book in collaboration with other teams. We did many other collabs, surveys, interviews, and others. And one of our main collabs included the iGEM team from Bielefeld, in which we collected data on GM crops legislation and usage in many different countries, resulting in this graph.
But all of that would not be possible amid a huge cut in Brazilian science investment if not for the people who believed in us. They saw us on the news, they saw us on the streets, they talked to us. And because of them, we had a very successful crowdfunding campaign, raising the equivalent of $8,000.
And this allowed us to be the very first iGEM team from south of Brazil, a region bigger in area than Germany, Italy, France, and other countries.
As a result, we had a great iGEM season, accomplishing the criteria listed on the slide.
I'm Angelo.
I'm Augusto.
I'm Lisa. I'm Victoria.
And this was iGEM Brazil, floating away with glyphosate.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Very good job. My question is, from your modeling, did you consider about for different size of the water source, what type of, what's the corresponding amount of engineering bacteria should be engaged in, and how long should the herbicide clearance take?
Sorry, we didn't understand the question.
Okay, you want to use this, your bacteria to clean the herbicide in the water source or something like that. So, for different size of the water source, probably you want to engage in different amounts of the bacteria. So, did you do some quantitative, the data has some quantitative data so that for what kind of what size of the water source, how many bacteria should contain, and how long should it take to clear this kind of herbicide?
So, we designed our filter, the harder part of the filter, based on, we are going to apply it into drainage soils. Like agricultural drainage soils. Because we did some research, we found on papers that the most concentration of glyphosate is found right before, right after the water goes out of the plantation.
Actually, we saw another bacteria that degrade another chemical in another paper, and in that paper it was similar to our bacteria, and it took 8 hours to degrade. So we thought we had to estimate a time, degradation time in order to model our filter. So we stipulated it would be 8 hours because we didn't have the measurements yet. So in order to create the filter, we stipulated this time, but then as the bacteria was not ready at the end, we couldn't measure it, how long it would take to degrade glyphosate.
And all these measures were made for thinking about a filter of 2 meters, almost 2 meters of diameter.
So we couldn't make the calculations for our model that we have because it's too big and the model is smaller, it's 7th scale down.
So you designed a kill switch such that if your bacteria were to escape, it would express a toxin and kill itself. Those type of systems have been known to be mutated out very quickly because there's no advantage for the bacteria to keep something that can kill itself. Have you thought about that or studied that or looked at alternate methods at all to control your bacteria?
As we have arabinose in our inside the alginate sphere, it will prevent the bacteria to excise the plasmid with the biobrick construction. Also, we wanted to put one more biobrick inside our bacteria, another kill switch to have two mechanisms to control its death, but we didn't have enough time to do so.
I was just wondering, how do you control growth inside of this filter? Because it's a living system. Like, does it have to be maintained? Do you need to replace the E. coli after several hours?
Yes, actually, we thought about the arabinose will be consumed by the bacteria over time, and when it's over, the bacteria with the kill switch will kill itself. So yes, it will require maintenance. So it will require us to change the bacteria over time. It will not be.
And we didn't estimate the time. We didn't estimate how long this bacteria will stay alive inside the alginate spheres. We don't know yet, but we know that we can produce these alginate spheres with LB medium. So it has all the nutrients that it needs to survive, but we don't know how long they will eventually starve.
As we know that it will require maintenance, that's why we designed the roof to be easier for the user to open and do the maintenance. That's why.
All right, and we're actually at our 5-minute limit there. Thank you very much.
Oi, galera.
Tchau, galera. Foi isso, gente. Ainda tô tremendo. Uhul, acabou.
Galera.
Vamos dar ali.
Muito fluentes, meus colegas.
Que inglês maravilhoso meus colegas têm, gente. Tô muito orgulhosa. Tchau.